Hi, my name is Timo Virtanova, and today we are going to talk about Valentina pattern making software, and we are going to make trousers basic block. We will continue from the block after this, but today is just the basic block. And here is ready-made trousers, and this is something that we are trying to achieve along with this design. But when you start your Valentine for the first time, it's going to be just a gray window, and the thing that you have to do to start with is to create a new button piece. And it should be always renamed something reasonable, and because we are making trousers, it would be trousers. And I always save it at the beginning. 2 reasons. It's a good practice, and especially this is the development version of the software. It has still glitches which will eventually go away, but at this time of the product it's good practice to save it frequently. Then the whole design starts from a fixed point, something which is not moving, and because we are talking about trousers, it's obvious that the floor line level is very fixed. All the other measures are relative to that. And when creating pattern, it's good to also fill the properties and document what you're doing. You have the pattern description, and you can have the technical notes, and then you have the general information which can be printed if you want it on the pattern pieces on the paper. And I definitely recommend to use that, because you get the date and all the valid information, and if you're using measurement file, then it can be shown there as well. In the table variables, all the values are there, but at the beginning there is nothing done, so all the other tabs are empty, but the incremental values are the ones that you can use for your own use. And I make first few sections. It's the measurements, and then the ease values for the ease addition to the garment, and then the alteration values, which is something that when you alter the basic block, you have the values there, and then of course the computed values. It's good practice to separate those, so you know which values to modify if you want to change something in your pattern. And you should always try to use the description field as well. Many times when you get the pattern, it's from the book, from the web, from the newspaper or publication. You have some values there, width and girth and all that kind of values. It's easy to start with those and enter those values here, and then you can also have the linked Valentina value here as a comment, and you can replace the formula with the Valentina value when you start to use the measurement file for that garment. The idea is that the measurements are something which comes either from the measurement value or from the actual measurement, what you have done. These values is something that you add to make the garment comfortable, and as I said, the alteration is for the modification, and the calculated values is something that you don't have to change, or you very rarely change, but it's good to have there to have the visibility if something is you don't understand where some width comes, you can look for the calculation and you understand how it's calculated, and you get a better understanding of that value. For the trousers, we have the waist, grip, hip girth, and side length, and the crotch height, and the hemline girth. And then you can calculate the others, like the knee line is 60% from the crotch height. And one of the key things to understand with Valentina is that you can't use any value before it has been defined. And well, in the list it's easy to understand that it has to be earlier in the list to be able to use that. But sometimes when you're doing the actual drawing, you can't use any line value or point or anything before it has been created. And it has to be relative where you're using. And that happens when you try to change afterwards some value using a value which is actually not defined before your points that you want to change. So you have to look the order, and you can see that which values are available there on the list. But sometimes if it's not, it's probably because you have defined that later than when you want to really use that value. These values, what I'm using here, they are coming from the actual pattern design. It's Miller-Edson, based on Miller-Edson pattern. You can, if you want to have more information, you can look for their books. They have a couple books in English, the rest are in German, but the pictures are pretty good, and it's easy to understand how the garment is actually done. And if you just learn a few words, then you can manage with those. And I like them because they're quite complete. They're having a lot of good information. And in the formula, it's good to have the addition, and then in the description have the describe the range of the values. And as you see, all the increment values, they start with hash, and all the others in the long run, you will see that there are descriptive word in the beginning of the word, but then the actual value is without anything else. And in the formula field, always when it's not correct or complete, it's showing error, and when it's okay, then you see the calculated value, and you can use the filter for filtering the list. Especially if you have a longer list, it's very useful. This back panel shape value is a specific value which actually have a huge impact of how the back panel is shaped, and you can controlling that you can really control the shape of the back panel. So when you start using the first lines, you can just use one tool, which is a point tool, and holding a shift key you can go around and see, and you can see that it's having a preset values of 45 degrees. And if you're not happy with your tool, you can click the arrowhead and reselect the tool, and then you can go. And the angle starts from the 3 o'clock and going counterclockwise. So going just up, it's 90 degrees. And I like to use different line types and different colors to make it readable, the picture, so that it's easy to see what is the outer reds and what is something else. And with the option key you can go to that point values, and you can change the point label before you will use it. It's free to change whatever you want, but when it's used, then you get a problem. So it's good to do it straight away. And then to having a point along the line, you can add points to between 2 points, or actually it goes beyond, even if it's just on the same line. So here we're adding the knee line and the crotch line and the hip line. And with the angle point, you will get the point which is right angle or 45 degrees multiplies. Sometimes if you're going to have an additional line or point on the same line, it's better to use just one line, dashed line, because if it's on top of each other, they are not equal, and it's get accumulated, and it's a little bit thicker than just the normal line. And we need to define the hem width. We're not defining a line here because we're going to have an additional line. Again, here is a value that I prefer to have in the table of variables rather than a 1 centimeter value inside the drawing. So I just add that value here. It's the difference between the front and back panel. With this tool you can have a crossing of two lines. The knee width is something that can be defined by taking a little bit in from the straight line of the knee level. And the easiest way to copy that, the same point on the other side, is to use this tool, changing the division to multiplication. So there actually was an error in the A8 value, and I paused it and I corrected the value to the correct value, it will be correct in the file. Some guidance lines, they should be also be some other color than just the black one, so that you can easily see that it has something some other use than drawing the actual garment or the pattern piece. This is a simple curve which has just 2 points, the start and the end, and it's a Bezier curve, so you can control the curve shape with the handles. One of the challenges with the curves is that when you change the size of the pattern significantly, the curves will not always follow. There is a curve which can be tied with the handles, but sometimes it's difficult to see where the handles should go, so it's a bit easier to control that by hand, but it's something that needs to be taken care of, and it's again a decision which kind of curve you're going to use. Again, there was an error which I corrected by pausing this video, but now the A8 is correct and the other value is corrected. This is a nice tool to get a point which is having the same and x and y values. We have to take a little bit in the side seam, so the 1 centimeter is it can be added to the table of variables, but this time I didn't do, because the alteration is probably going to be totally something else when we are doing the actual pattern piece for the garment. Just adding the curves, we will then control the handles so that we straighten up and then make the curve go smoothly. And because it's going to be the outer edge of the basic block, I'm changing the color to red so that it's visible. Then the waistline is of course longer than a quarter of the waist, so we need to make darts, and at this time it's going to be just quarter from the side seam, and we have to find the length of the simple curve, and we divide that by 4. Then we get the center of the dart, and then we have to add the dart points on each side of the we're just using the same tool over and over again to get the points. Just taking the difference, dividing that by 2, and then adding that, but it goes in the wrong place because we're dividing that by half, not by 4, or we're dividing by 2 but not by 4. It's always when you're playing with the math, it's not so straightforward always how you calculate things, so it will take a while to see where the error is. And one of the ways is just you remove the part and you see that okay, it's 1.7 centimeters. What is the half of the difference? And then you can enlarge that, and then now it's correct. Okay, and we take the same and we go to the other direction, just having plus rather than minus. Okay, and then we take the dart depth. This time it's just 90 degrees angle from that curve, but it could be in the other direction if you want, but it's your choice. And again, this is the final one, so we change the color. The correct one. Okay, now we have the whole front piece ready, and we like to group those so that we can take that out of sight if we want. So with that eye tool, we will select the areas or the points which we want to include. Okay, and then press enter and give the name for that group. Okay, and it's good to test that so it works. And the back center is not in the same place as in the front panel, so that it means that the back crease is a different location, and for this example I'm using 2 centimeters different difference there. So because this is showing the front crease line, this line, so we take 2 centimeters off, which is the value there, what we just added. Then we need to add the back panel back center width, which is, we add that to the current length. Quarter of the back panel width. And then the back panel shape value, which is actually manipulating the angle of the back center angle. It's controlled by the difference from the hip line. The control point is relative to the hip line or the crotch line. And it's good practice to mark the key points, so that when you read the pattern afterwards, you can see where they are and how they will go. And we're adding just one help point, to be exact, to this. The key is that it's 90-degree angle from the shape point. Okay, then we are using the special tool, which requires a little bit practice to control that. Select the point where you're actually measuring, and then you're selecting the line, and then you select the length, and it's finding the cross point, of the length from the point along that line. And that gives the back panel width. Sometimes it's easier just to point the text of or the name of the point rather than the actual point, because it's easier to hit the text than the point. Now we need to find the back crotch point, and what we need to do is that we have to find first of all the outer edge of the back panel, and it's using the same difference that we actually there is it should be double the difference, but it's in this example it doesn't make sense. I will correct that in the file. And because the inside seam length should be the same, so we just need to measure from the knee line the same length what is now in the crotch point front. There will be a slight difference because it will be, now we are using as a straight line, but we are going to curve that, but the difference is so small that it's easier to do it this way. And with these curves, which are having different segments, you have to select the correct segment if you're just using a measurement of a specific segment. So in this case it's the first one. Finding the side seam point. And then we're adding a measurement line. Because there is no lines between these 2 points, we have to add a one line there to be able to see the distance, because we are using that distance to define the back center height, we're using again this special tool. And it's good to use these filters when you have a lot of lines. It makes life much faster. And it always takes a while to get these curves correct. And we just take just 1 centimeter in from the side seam. Okay, the lines are now straightened. And the last thing to do is to add the darts to the back panel. And the first one goes into the middle, and if there is a need, we can have another one in the middle of the middle and side seam. So it's just 1/4 away from the side seam. And then we need to add the differences. And normally the maximum dart depth is 2 centimeters. And therefore we have to take care that the first one is not more than 2 centimeters. So we take the minimum value, either we take 2 centimeters or then the calculated value. And then we have to take care that, because we are subtracting things, that it doesn't go on minus side, and that's why we have to take the maximum 0 or the calculated value if it's positive. So that's the way to take care that the value is in the boundaries. There is an error because I'm writing the values, not using them from the list, but it's the one way of doing it. The only thing that it's not always correct when what you write, but it's again easy to see when it can calculate. It's not error anymore. Okay, and then we add the point on the other side. There was an error that the difference was supposed to be half of the difference, not not as a full, but because it's using the maximum value, it doesn't make any difference. But if it's less than the 2 centimeters or 4 centimeters, then it calculates incorrectly. And it's good to move those point labels so that they're visible and you can understand what you're actually doing. Then we are just adding the depth of the dart. That is again something that you could have in the table of variables. And then again changing the colors of the lines. So the back panel is ready, and we just need to make that as a group. Which is not always so easy, but what happens when you're testing it. It doesn't go always like it should be. And because there is no way to edit the list, you just need to delete it and do it again. So that way it's good practice to make small groups so that it's easy to handle. If you have a lot of points, it may take a while to get everything on the list. Okay, we have now those panels ready, and we will continue with the actual garment and make the changes so that we can get something out of it. But that next video. Thanks.